You're watching Fugitive Red-Eye, and welcome to the third video of today, and another episode of Nostalgic Gaming Stories. Been a little bit since I've done one. I don't think it's been that long in comparison. But today, we'll be talking about Simpsons games. Now, this is actually a video I have been planning to make for fucking ages, and now I'm finally getting around to doing it. So, let's talk about Simpsons games. So, as some of you may know, The Simpsons was actually a series that I wasn't allowed to watch when I was a younger kid. Later on as a kid, I was when I was like 10 or 11, maybe 12. Maybe a little bit later than that even, I can't remember for sure. But it was really stupid, because I could watch other stuff that was on par, if not worse. Certain R-rated movies were allowed, but The Simpsons specifically was not for some weird reason. But despite the fact that, up until around age, like I said, 11 or 12, I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons, I could still play The Simpsons games because I talked my mom into letting me do it. Number one, we started with Bart vs. the World on the NES. And the reason that I was able to get away with playing that one is because it's the NES. You can't really do a whole lot to make it super bad, right? So, there you go. That's how I got around and played Bart vs. the World, and I love that game. I could never complete the ice level when I was younger, but as you've seen in my stream, if you've seen it, and the highlights I did of it, I actually did complete that level just last year. It's a very difficult game, and it's often considered to be a really bad game. I know AVGN did a whole video on it. I personally think it's not that bad. It's very nostalgic for me, and it's very fun. It's certainly not the best of Simpsons games. We'll get to that in a minute. But Bart vs. the World was certainly a fun game. Later on, I would convince them to let me play The Simpsons Road Rage by just saying, oh, well, it's just a Simpsons taxi game. It's a taxi game with Simpsons characters, which, in fairness, is completely true. So I would play a lot of The Simpsons Road Rage, and I absolutely loved every second playing The Simpsons Road Rage. I would role-play when I was playing it. I'd make up my own storylines. I knew very little about the characters. In fact, because Smithers had no lines in Road Rage, I was under the impression that Smithers couldn't talk. Discount the fact that he actually has dialogue in the beginning of Bart vs. the World. I guess I was just being stupid. But maybe because that wasn't voiced, it just didn't click in my head, So yeah, I thought that Smithers couldn't talk or didn't talk. And with Road Rage, my favorite character was Moe. I still love Moe. He's one of my favorite characters. He's easily my favorite side character in the town. It's very close between him and Apu, actually. I really do like Apu. Apu's a really good character. But Moe is definitely one of my favorites. So I would play as Moe quite a bit. My favorite map in Road Rage was Entertainment District. Now, if you don't know, Road Rage is actually basically a straight-up rip-off of Crazy Taxi, and they actually got sued by Sega for using a lot of patented mechanics when making the game. They settled outside of court, but essentially that's what led to Simpsons Hit and Run being created, is they actually had to change the next game and make it different enough to not actually get sued again. Which I actually think is for the better, because The Simpsons Hit and Run is easily, still to this day, the best Simpsons game of all time. So I would go around and I'd play The Simpsons Hit and Run as well. I would 100% it on the PS2, and then later on the original Xbox. I've 100%ed the game twice when I was younger, and still need to redo that now. I have beat the game again on stream, and I've done a little bit of a challenge that Awesome Gamer put out a year or two ago. So I have played it extensively in my adult life, but I haven't 100%ed it again yet, so we still need to get to that 100%. But some of the missions are kind of nightmarish in that game, like Set to Kill, and the fish one, which I think I actually did complete finally, if I remember correctly, the one where you have to catch all the fish. The Simpsons Hit and Run is easily my favorite Simpsons game. Much like with Road Rage, I made a lot of false assumptions because I hadn't seen the show yet, and the way I convinced my parents to let me play that one is I told them it's just the sequel to Road Rage, which it kind of is. It's a very different game, but it was originally intended to be Road Rage 2. So, with The Simpsons Hit and Run, I played the shit out of it. It was one of the most played games I had when I was a kid, right? I originally played it, as well as Road Rage, on Dozer Max PS2, and then later got it myself on Xbox. With The Simpsons Hit and Run, some of the false assumptions I made was, for instance, I thought Hugo was a canon character. I thought Bart actually had a canon twin brother named Hugo, because I didn't understand exactly how Treehouse of Horror worked yet. Eventually I would be allowed to watch The Simpsons, and I would actually buy Season 2, and then Season 1, 4, 6, 8, and then later on I would go and get all the ones in between. I do currently own every Simpsons season that has been released on DVD, although The Simpsons has massively declined in recent years, for sure. But I personally think the first 20 seasons are at least watchable, and I do enjoy them. After I was allowed to watch the show, I would also see the movie in theaters as it came out. But another thing that would happen is after we saw the movie, I would actually go on to play a bunch of the Simpsons games online while I was in school on Simpsons.com, or whatever it was called at the time. I can't remember. I think it was just the Simpsons.com, but I could be wrong. But as you can see, there were some flash games on here. And if you've been paying attention to my second channel, you'll know that I recorded this flash game footage years ago in preparation for this video, but never did it until now. So now you finally get to see this footage put to the use it was intended for. But yes, the flash games were fun. They were very simplistic, and it had like this virtual sort of Springfield you could explore. Obviously there was the zombie shootout, the Bible blaster, but there was, character profiles and little Easter eggs hidden throughout the site. And it was a fun website. I wish that it still existed. The only way you can get to it now is through, like, the Wayback Machine. And even then, with Flash going away in December, I'm willing to bet it's going to be gone, right? But yeah, Simpsons games have always been a fun part of me growing up, and it was my initial introduction to this franchise. And I think that was an interesting way to jump off into it. Simpsons games are still fun, and I still play them to this day. I've actually played a decent amount of Road Rage and Hit and Run recently. Some of Road Rage maybe for an upcoming special, but hint, hint. I think that ultimately Simpsons games have been great over time. I did eventually play The Simpsons game when it came out as well, and The Simpsons game is a pretty fun one too, although I don't like it as much as Hit and Run or Road Rage. But it is probably my third favorite Simpsons game. But anyway, you get the idea. I love these games. They're very fun if you like The Simpsons. And I'd recommend giving them a play if you haven't, because you're missing out. But anyway, that's all really for today. This has been Fugitive Red Eye. Have a good one. Toodles.
Do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. How was that?
Ugh, we better pixelate those.
There aren't enough pixels in the world!
Yeah, just cover it with Ryan Seacrest's head. This is Charles.
You can call me Charlie, but do not call me late when there are scones about. It's a little British humour.